Welcome back to UnKind TV, everyone. I'm Martha, and tonight I will be discussing The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Season 10, Episode 14. That's Not Amore. Just a quick viewer note, I apologize if I'm a little bit off this evening. I'm very, very tired. It's been a rough few days. For those of you who are new, I have a really sweet dog. She's a rescue beagle. Her name is Stevie. Unfortunately, she's getting old. Well, she is old, and she hasn't been well. So it's been a lot of cleaning up, watching, seeing what's going to happen. I'm very worried. So if you pray, please pray. Good vibes, good thoughts, all that. Thank you. I will be watching The Real Coven of Rodeo Drive from my bed, and I will be pausing and commenting as I see fit. Let's get to it. We are continuing this insane dinner from hell. Denise is adamant that she's being honest. She says that the very first time she met Brandi Glanville was when Brandi said all this negative stuff about the group. The gossip, the insults, insinuating that she has slept with people from the group, that every woman she meets wants to sleep with her. And of course, John Mellencamp's daughter thinks she's Perry Mason because she's like, well, I'm hearing a lot of conversation between you and Brandi, so that means you have a relationship. And Denise says, well, she called me and you answered. So what? She called, you answered, therefore there's a relationship. And I can't believe what I'm about to say. Dorit is the voice of reason. Dorit. Dorit says, well, just because they've spoken doesn't mean that they have a relationship. Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I've spoken with a lot of people on numerous occasions, and I wouldn't describe them as people with whom I have a relationship. They're people with whom I am acquainted. There are people I've spoken to once or twice who have revealed very personal things. There are some people who are like that. I think we can all agree that Brandi Glanville is one of them. I don't know why this is what Mellencamp's kid is harping on. There are much bigger holes in Denise's story, so I don't know why it keeps coming back to, but you did talk to her. You talked to her. You had a conversation. So John Mellencamp's daughter says the bottom line is it doesn't add up. I would agree with that. It doesn't add up. Maybe because Denise is embarrassed and you guys are revealing something deeply personal that she doesn't want out there, and she's not doing a very good job of covering it up, and sadly for her, this is all playing out on camera. Some people are just not that quick on their feet. Oh, and then Rinna has to just jump in with, it feels dirty. It feels dirty. You know what felt dirty to me? That staged reveal where Brandi was mic'd and disclosed this deeply, deeply personal information that was absolutely nobody's business. That was dirty. That you're supposed to be Denise's friend of over 20 years and you let her get ambushed on camera. That's dirty. Feels dirty. Oh, it sure does. I don't get why she's being so aggressive toward Denise. She's just going harder and harder on her. She tells her, if you don't want to be here, then go. And Denise is getting emotional and she says, you're being really rude right now, Lisa. And she is. I can see how she's hurt. This is supposed to be her friend. Imagine a friend of over 2 decades. Not only doesn't have your back, didn't give you a heads up on any of this. Now you're trying to defend yourself against this pack of wolves, and your friend is the one being the nastiest to you. Garcelle asks a really good question of the group. She says, why are you all taking Brandi's side? She says she doesn't know her personally. She only knows what she has seen in the press, but it doesn't make sense that they are taking Brandi's word as gospel when she has a history of being rather problematic. And the ladies have been spending a lot of time with Denise and enjoyed her company. And it doesn't make sense for them to be completely taking what Brandi says to the bank and discrediting everything that Denise comes back with. I can answer that for you, Garcelle. Why is this group suddenly taking the word of Brandi Glanville? Because they need a storyline. And because they are a coven, they need a victim du jour to suck the youth out of. And that victim is Denise Richards. And when they go back to the hotel, they will sit around their bubbling cauldron and they will throw in their eye of newt along with the hair from the brush of Denise Richards. Now the ladies have moved into a different part of the restaurant and the interrogation continues. And this is where I feel like somebody needs to tell Denise to stop talking. She needs an attorney present, someone who can say anything you say can and will be used against you during the reunion. Zip it, because the more she talks, the more she's stumbling and the more they're jumping on her. She swears on her mother's grave, which don't do that. And they all say, don't do that. Denise, no. She swears on her mother's grave that she didn't say the thing she's accused of saying, specifically about Erica. Then in her talking head, she says she didn't say those things. Brandy said those things and she agreed with them. Is it the same as being the one who said it? I don't think so, but I think it is still dishonest to sit there and swear on your mother's grave that you had no part in it. I would have had more respect for Denise had she told them, Brandy said these things about all of you, and I sat there and, okay, maybe I could have defended you, and I just kind of sat there and nodded along. To swear on her mother's grave that she didn't say any of this is just a little cringe. And then Denise gets a talking head where she says, I said worse things about Teddy than Brandy says I said, so I think it's funny the way they're going like by bullet point, all the things Brandy says Denise said about the group. And Denise says to John Mellencamp's daughter, no, we didn't say the thing about you being desperate to be part of the group. The part about riding your father's coattails, yeah, that was said. Then there's this weird, awkward segue, like poor script writing, where Rinna turns to Garcelle and says, do you have anything to be honest about? And Garcelle reveals that she has asked Lisa if she feels that her fitness and her half-naked Instagram dancing videos have affected her daughter's mental health. Specifically, does she think that they were a contributing factor in her daughter's eating disorder? Lisa's defensive. Kyle is smirking through this whole thing, which makes me think that Kyle possibly agrees with Garcelle. Garcelle says she's not being judgmental. It's just an honest question. We've seen that Garcelle's not afraid to speak her mind. It is judgmental, though. I don't know how she can say it's not judgmental. And I want to say something because Lisa's daughter went and defended her on Instagram and she felt like this didn't make any sense. I get where Garcelle is coming from in that Lisa Rinna is extremely tiny, like 0% body fat, extremely cut up, and she's constantly showing off her body all over social media. I can understand how someone else might think that's a little insensitive to do to your daughter who is having severe problems with anorexia. Doesn't necessarily mean that the videos caused it or that Rinna's fitness caused it, but perhaps Rinna created something of an impossible standard for her daughters to live up to. I could see that argument being made. I don't know if I would say it's Rinna's fitness or Rinna's videos that contributed to the daughter having an eating disorder, but I think Rinna being batshit crazy, yeah, that's part of it. Anyway, much like I spent my day, half the group starts to cry. Denise is crying. The others are sort of fake crying. Rinna's crying. They all leave into the rainy night. It is the next morning. Erica and the pregnant lady are going for spa treatments. Sutton and Garcelle are going to attend mass. Kyle and Dorit are taking Vespas out in the rain. Kyle says it feels like Sunday morning in Vegas, and we all know what that feels like. Yes, that's how I feel right now. And then we get a very Bold and the Beautiful scene from Denise and Lisa Rinna. Marvelous acting. Denise asks her dear friend, why did you let the group go after me like that? Why? And she points out that she has defended Lisa Rinna many times, and she doesn't understand why her friend didn't protect her. Lisa comes back with, I don't like that you went tit for tat. Don't do that. She's getting aggressive again, which Denise points out. Why are you attacking me? And Denise says, I have not experienced this with you as a friend in all these years. Why now are you behaving this way? I'll tell you why. Because now you're on a television show. Now it's about a storyline. There is no friendship, Denise. No. Your friendship off camera means nothing. The only thing Lisa Rinna cares about is her screen time and keeping her spot on this show. If it means sacrificing her friendship with you, it's nothing. It is nothing to a vampire like that. And here comes the Emmy-worthy crying from Lisa Rinna. This is how you know it's fake. she's not ugly crying. She's crying in such a way where she's looking away, playing to the camera. A lot of, you know what you look like when you really cry. This is not real crying. This is camera crying. I would know. I've taken on-camera acting classes. That is what she's doing. Big time. Denise again can't seem to comprehend why this has happened. She says, "Why have me around? Just to try and destroy my family? For what?" For what, Denise? For ratings. Because these women are not human. They are ghouls, they are goblins, they are gargoyles. They are not your friends. Rinna continues to dial up the tears and the breakdown and how she doesn't understand what's going on with herself. I don't know what's happening to me. Denise starts to cry. I think Denise is more genuine than Lisa Rinna. I think Denise has empathy and she feels bad about what's happening. And she tells Lisa, "Why don't you come to church with us?" Lisa goes, "I'd like that. I'd like to go to church." Good luck with all this church business. I don't see how any of these women can set foot in a church. Maybe a couple of them. The rest, it's going to be like The Omen when they try to take Damien to church and the kid wigs out and scratches his mother's face off. I do not see these women entering the house of God. This is not going to happen. I think Andy Cohen should get a bottle of holy water blessed by the Pope from the Vatican and sprinkle it on all the women during the reunion just to see what happens. Let's just see which one of them starts screaming "it burns" in Latin first. My money's on Rinna. Dorit is not happy about having to wear a helmet for the Vespa. Well, actually, it's the sidecar of the Vespa. It is pretty funny. She has to put on this hair condom thing before she can put on the helmet. Thoroughly enjoyed seeing Dorit look like an idiot. Rinna and Denise are riding with Sutton and Garcelle to attend Mass. Rinna starts saying, "I need Mass more than anyone." You know, something about getting in touch with her better side. And Sutton gets a talking head where she says, "Is there a better side to Lisa Rinna?" Sutton starts being shady from the back of the car. Sutton starts being shady from the back seat. She's like, "We can all atone for our sins and the sins around us all weekend." They get these talking heads where they explain their different religions and their complicated relationships with religion. This one grew up Catholic, this one was Presbyterian and converted to Catholicism. Rinna joined different families at different church functions. Bottom line is, they're a bunch of godless heathens. I was raised Catholic. I can most identify with Garcelle. Brought up Catholic, now consider yourself more spiritual than anything else. Oh, right, and like Garcelle, my life choices technically make me excommunicated, so. As they're driving, Lisa shares that Harry Hamlin lived in Italy, and while he was living in Italy, he had a quick fling with Ursula Andress, and they had a son. Apparently, she called him to her room, and they hooked up, and she got pregnant that one time. And Lisa loves this story. I can just hear her saying, "There are worse people to knock up in a one-night stand. Harry Hamlin. Ursula Andress is hot." I'll give her this. If I had to marry someone who had a child from a previous encounter, I wouldn't be mad if that encounter happened with Ursula Andress, Sophia Loren. That's quite the movie star. The ladies couldn't get into Mass. I told you. I knew it. I don't believe that what happened was that the line was too long. I actually think that Lisa Rinna cannot set foot on sacred ground. So they had to nix that. Sutton says that, well, if this were my trip to organize, I would have gotten tickets to go to Mass at St. Peter's in advance, but it doesn't matter though, Sutton, because half this group would just burst into flames. We get a filler scene. Rinna catches up with Dorit and Kyle for lunch. Apparently she ditched them without telling them where she was going to be, and they were just so concerned. She fills them in on everything that happened. She says, "I had a breakdown." The gist of it is this. Rinna feels really bad about the way she has treated Denise. Dorit and Kyle are glad that they had the conversation. Rinna is hoping to do better. On the way to dinner, Sutton is kind of left out in the van, but she's riding with Kyle, Dorit, and Rinna. And Dorit is planning a baby shower for John Mellencamp's daughter. How nice. At Buca di Beppo. And I love Sutton's talking head where she's like, Buca di Beppo, Buca di Beppo, Buca di Beppo. Is that like Olive Garden? I'm not being disrespectful. I haven't heard of it. You're not alone, Sutton. All right, it's the final dinner of the trip, and this is when Denise decides to tell everyone off badly. She says she has felt attacked every single night, that it has been a gang up, that this has been the worst trip of her life. No exaggeration, that her husband had a bad feeling and didn't want her to go, and he was right. And then she says, wait for it because this is really bad, they have been acting like mean girls. You would think she called them see you next Tuesday, any number of things, because the way they react is like she said some kind of slur. How dare she call them mean girls? And then Rinna says that that's a very sensitive label because they were all bullied last season, being called the mean girls of Beverly Hills. I don't know what else you expect to be called when you drive someone who is grieving the suicide of her brother off the show. And from day one, in particular, Beverly Hills has been a major Mean Girls group. I was just thinking the other day about the way they handled Taylor Armstrong's domestic violence. That was awful. I remember when Brandy first appeared, the way Kyle and Kim behaved, hiding her crutches. If I had to pick one group out of all the Real Housewives that is by far the most mean girls, that I would be the most terrified to join, it would be this group. Garcelle dramatically gets up and leaves the table after Denise says her piece. Then Denise follows her. The ladies are very upset about this. They feel that Denise is always leaving, that a big reason they have these problems is because Denise leaves in the middle of conversations. Sutton says she likes to leave. Garcelle is crying outside. Denise asks her, what's wrong? Are you okay? And Garcelle says she misses her kids. She wishes she were with her children. And I've heard other housewives say this on other trips. I remember last season of OC, Gina was crying that she missed her kids. I think the trips must be brutal to film. If you think about it, when you're home, you have days off, you have time in between filming, you have time to prepare for what's coming. It's scripted and it's a setup. The trip is like you are trapped for days and days and days with this group of relentless pit vipers and a camera on you pretty much at all times. It seems nothing is off limits, by the way, because the Real Houses of New York are in Mexico and they're documenting their bathroom issues. So you have pretty much not a moment's privacy this entire time. I think it really starts to wear people down, especially when they aren't veterans of the Housewives trips. Garcelle is new. It's not easy. Producer intervention alert. I love when production has to get involved. Denise says she's going to go back to the hotel and a producer has to come in and say, you're making a big mistake. You're making a big mistake going back. He feels that she can't say all that stuff and then not hear the response from the women. She agrees to go back. Denise is a professional actress. She knows. Don't walk off set. I love, though, that the producer makes it seem like it's the fair and just thing to do. Denise doesn't owe them anything. They have been horrible to her and to everyone else, and I wouldn't fault her for going back to the hotel. I wouldn't fault her for just leaving altogether. I don't fault anybody who decides to suddenly just eject themselves from this group because it's that god-awful. I would have more respect for the producers if they said that, like, hey, come on, we have to continue filming, finish your scene. No, instead it's, you owe them this. You should really hear them out. Denise does go back and the group is very happy. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for coming back. I don't know why they're so thrilled. I don't know if it's just because they know that they won't have a scene without Denise there to finish the night. Rinna says, can we not use labels? And Denise says, I wasn't labeling you mean girls. I said it felt like mean girls, which in fairness, she did say that. This is feeling like mean girls. I just cannot believe the audacity of Lisa Rinna to be so upset about being called a mean girl. What is it that you think you are? Are we going to pretend that every season you don't pick a new victim to gang up on and torture all season? Evidently, that's what we're doing. They decide to toast and commit to having a good night. Of course, the pregnant lady has to make a show of not being able to toast. And what better way to diffuse the situation than to play a game of, hey, what's the craziest place you've ever had sex? I couldn't care less. We end the episode with everybody agreeing to drop the negativity. Okay, we'll see how long that lasts. That's that. The preview for next week seems interesting. I could do without the baby shower, but I do want to see Brandy get confronted with Denise's denial. It seems from the preview that Brandy counters with a very vulgar and explicit defense. I'm really looking forward to having to dissect that one. But that's it for tonight's episode. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Give this video a like if you are so inclined, and please subscribe if you haven't. You can follow UnKind TV on Instagram and Twitter. And please remember to keep my little Stevie in your prayers. She's very important to me. She's brought a lot of joy to my family, and she's very, 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 very loved. Well, let's hope she pulls through this. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.